Nearly 4 years ago, I left my job with nowhere to go with a 1-month-old in the middle of COVID. It was scary to leave a job with a mortgage, a newborn, and a partner that was still recovering from childbirth. Everybody in the leadership team at Neverland has never done the role they're doing now before. And I guess when you're not having to follow a set path, it's quite rewarding for people and it's motivating because it's then on you to get it right.
What's been the unexpected for you now being CEO?
There is a definite change. It's quite lonely. Self-awareness is probably really important. And it's not just about doing what you think is right, because as a company, you kind of have to have the company as a whole in the back of your mind when you make all these decisions.
Hello and welcome back to the Courageous Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Joanna Howes, and today's guest is someone who leads with both heart and a creative edge, the CEO of Neverland London, Josh Harris. Josh has led teams across some of the best agencies in the UK, shaping iconic campaigns from British Airways to Amazon Prime. So let's dive in. Josh, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
And thanks for having me.
It's good. As you know, we go straight into what's been a courageous moment for you.
Probably nearly 4 years ago, I left my job with nowhere to go with a 1-month-old in the middle of COVID.
Well,
It's probably the most courageous thing I've done, looking back on it. Possibly the most stupid thing I've done, but I don't regret it.
so what came about needing to do that?
When we were in a particular situation in the agency that I was working at, things weren't great, as they weren't for many people in COVID. There was just a relentless nature to the work ethic, and it just didn't feel like it was needed. And I think when you're pushing people for no genuine reason other than to show that you're still working without it going anywhere, it just felt pointless, genuinely pointless. And I, at the time, had obviously my son Vinny, who was a year, and my wife Kate was about to go back to work after mat leave, and we just thought it was the best time to let Kate fly straight back into work, and I could do sort of, I guess, the parental leave that I really wanted to do through that first year, and we could have, a couple of months together being dad,
Nice.
which I loved. It was fantastic, but it was scary to leave a job with a mortgage, a newborn, and a partner that was still recovering from childbirth, which is quite an experience.
Yeah.
And there was a good leap of faith that actually Kate was the biggest champion of, because I think she could tell that I wasn't myself and wasn't the happy me that I'd always been at work, because I love what I do. And if you just stop feeling like that, it makes a big difference. It stops feeling like something that you love doing. It stops feeling like work.
And at what point did you know it got to the point where you had to leave? Because I reckon there's a lot of people listening are kind of feeling this doesn't feel right anymore. This doesn't feel part of my values, who I am. But when do you think that point where you knew it's gone too far? If I stay, this could become actually really unhealthy for me.
2 moments. The first was, we were all working at home, as everybody was. But even though I was working at home, there was a day where I didn't see my son. He was in the house the whole time, and I was just upstairs on calls. I was a bit like, this is awful. And then there was a particularly stressful moment once, and looking back on it now, I know it was like a panic attack. And I had a panic attack in my garden. And you remember that gorgeous summer where it was super hot and everyone was coming out of COVID and things were stabilizing a bit. So the sort of the zeitgeist was everybody was feeling positive and pumped. And I was just in this really dark space. And I think that was I left within a week, I think, after that.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, were you able to talk to the company to see if they could change things and give them feedback? Did you try and make those changes and it just went on deaf ears?
No, there were 2 people in the company who I think went out of their way to help. But I think by the time that I'd spoken to them, it was too late. And I was already sort of in my own head about stuff.
Yeah.
But without those 2 people, I would have, they gave me a way out basically, and sort of reassured me that it wasn't going to be difficult or I wasn't letting anybody down, because you carry that with you as well as they had a big team and I loved all of them. We had a great time before COVID hit, and it just got really difficult, I think. And you can't separate work and life, especially when everyone's living at home, working at home. I mean, it was a dark time for everybody, wasn't it?
Just curious because similar but different situation I found myself in, and I got to the point where I had to leave. My health wasn't going to go get any better. I had to go. I went through quite a bit of shame of why couldn't I handle this? Hang on, other people seem to be handling this. Why couldn't I? Am I a failure? And I started to do all that really negative sort of self-talk. Did you go through any of that, or how did it affect you in your mindset?
A little bit. I think my wife obviously knows me better than I know myself, and I think she was the one that said, "You're what's up? What's going on?" And then I don't know, maybe as a growing up in the industry, you're not necessarily encouraged to talk about your emotions, so you sort of just crack on. And it was definitely helpful to talk to Kate and be really open and transparent with her. But yeah, I doubt myself the whole time. You know, we've all got imposter syndrome. You find yourself in these situations where everyone's looking for an answer or some direction or a thing. You know, you're a bit like, God, I don't know. Let's make a decision. Might not be right, might be wrong, but you go with it. But I think the more you're around the people who support you and are positive, then it really helps.
So that environment, getting yourself to the right environment. So going through that change, and your dad at home, which is obviously wonderful for you, and I'm guessing that was also a really lovely healing process for you, and after being in such a dark place to be with your son and that time to heal. How did it feel then going, I'm going to go back into the workplace? Where do I start? How was that in terms of how you handled that?
Those 6 months, as I'm sure every parent can relate to, when you send your kid to nursery, it's like the bubonic plague hits every week, and there's some disgusting virus that they bring home, or spots and rushes and sickness and you know, explosive vomiting, which I'm sure nobody wants to hear about. But that 6 months was take him into nursery on a Monday, have to pick him up lunchtime on Wednesday, and then because it was COVID, you couldn't send them back in unless it had a negative PCA test, so they'd then be off for 10 days, and then the cycle started again. So by the time I was ready to go back to work, I was very ready to go back to work. He was super settled in nursery. That sort of like all the illnesses had subsided. We'd got through it together as a family, because it meant that Kate didn't have to worry about it. And I think as a mum, sadly, I think most mums feel the onus is on them to do a lot of the childcare. So it was great that we didn't have that concern, and I could do a lot of it. And then when I went back, you're dipping your toe back in for the first time. But I wasn't torn. I knew I had to get a job, and I knew exactly what I wanted that job to be and the type of environment I wanted to be in. Because as awful as it was, those last couple of months in that agency, it crystallizes everything that you want going forward. And I've worked at networks and I've worked at indies, and I've felt my best in the agencies that feel independent. I mean, the first one I worked at wasn't. It was a network, but it never felt like that. And that was great. And then you sort of push yourself into that world a little bit.
No, I really like that. And I think because I'm listening to you here, remembering what I did in terms of then I interviewed so much better after that dark experience, because as you say, crystallizes. And I actually think you're not being interviewed so much, you're interviewing the company as much to go, is this the environment I want to be in? And are you someone I want to work with? Versus sitting there going, I've got to answer all my questions correctly. You need to answer them back just as correctly for me.
The best people that I've had the pleasure of meeting on a hiring journey are the people who are just totally comfortable in themselves. They're not trying to tick a box and answer a question. They speak from the heart and they speak honesty. And sometimes you don't necessarily like what you're hearing, but that is also great because you need those people around you.
Yeah, completely. So now you're sitting here as CEO, and I just think that's it's such a lovely story in terms of people listening now or watching, that you needed to leave an environment, but that hasn't damaged or hurt your career. You were able to come back, that you can have an episode in your career where it's not right. That doesn't mean you've lost everything. It's just you can rebuild and come back. And you've done that, and you're obviously now CEO for 9 months. What's been the unexpected for you now being CEO?
There is a definite change. It's quite lonely. I've got a brilliant team that I work within, and the two founders who own the business are still in the business. And, you know, I kind of need them to be in the business because they're both doing critical things that the business needs. But it is like a lonely sort of existence.
What's the lonely bit about it? When does it get lonely?
I think it gets lonely when you're trying to push different elements. So that could be creative work. It could be people. It could be the business side of it, the commercial side of it. And sometimes you, as a person who's running a business, you have to make decisions on the benefit of the business. And sometimes that means that it doesn't work for everybody within the business. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but when you see the whole picture, some decisions do sound or seem bizarre, but you know there's always a real reason for making that decision. Like a great example was, I mean, there's no surprise if you read any industry article at the moment, it's savage. Companies are making redundancies left, right, and centre. And when you're choosing not to do that because you're a people business and you are nothing without your people, you have to make sacrifices on the commercial side to support the people who are in the business, who give you everything to drive it forward. I'm sure if there was a business owner looking at this thinking, what, that's a stupid thing to say, how are you going to run a business like that? It will pay back. Probably not this year, but next year it will pay back in a big way, because everybody knows that we're all in it together. And that means a lot to people, I think.
It does. And it means a lot just hearing that, because I remember I was an operations director for years. And at the end of every year, I just sit there waiting, knowing I was going to get that call to say, you've got to clear anywhere between 250 and 400,000 of salaries. And again, it wasn't even the word people was mentioned. You just got to clear those salaries, clear those costs. And it happened every year. And it was so, so sad. So to hear you say that you're doing it differently. So I'm curious, are you happy to share what sort of things are you doing differently to maybe inspire other people to go, the first thing doesn't need to be cutting people. There might be other ways to look. What are you doing that's different?
We put a lot of focus on junior talent. And I say talent because they are some of the best people in our business are the youngest in terms of their career age. They have an energy and they are proactivity. They're doers. They get up, they move, they listen, they're inquisitive, they want to know, they want to learn. And that has always been the lifeblood of, I think, agencies, is the young talent, the practitioners who are coming in to actually do the work. And they, give the rest of us a lot of energy back.
Can I challenge you a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
What do you say to the people that are saying that the younger generation coming through don't know what hard day's work is? They're very 9 to 5. It's all about their side hustles. They can't get them to work as hard. What do you? So it sounds like you're not noticing that. Why do you think it's different that you're not seeing that?
Maybe the culture that we surround them with. We're a small business, so we're not a network agency. We're 60 people, so it's easy to know everybody on a personal level. It's easy to understand what motivates everybody, and it's easy to make sure that they're all got that motivation in front of them. There is a shift, I think, definitely I've been in advertising for 20 years. The first 5 years of my career were very different to the first 5 years of people's careers now. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the learning curve that you go on when you start is important, and surrounding yourself with as many people that you can learn from is critical. The endless work from home debate is probably quite a big obstacle. Everybody wants flexibility, and we give everybody the flexibility that they need. But why wouldn't you want to be around those people who have done it for 10, 15, 20 years, and you can learn from them, like in person?
Do you think you've built that culture where people want to come in and they appreciate that learning?
Being really honest,
yeah,
probably half the business think that they have to come in.
Okay.
But the other half of the business, I think, genuinely choose to be in because it's a good place. It's a good culture. Talked about our company away day yesterday. You see it in people. They genuinely enjoy hanging out with each other. Probably later than they should have done. But it's a nice familial experience that people really, really love. I mean, I might sound biased and a bit saccharine, but I do feel that way.
Yeah.
When you look out and you see the little conversations and the groups of people that and they see each other at the weekend. You can see it on Instagram and the stories that people have. So must be doing something right.
Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, to please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a small action that makes a big difference. You'll be the first to know when new episodes drop, and your support helps us create meaningful content for leaders like you. I'd also love to hear from you, so if you have any thoughts, questions or ideas, pop them into the comments. And if you're curious about how my leadership coaching or training could support you or your team, just drop me a DM and we'll set up a call. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the episode. So I want to try and unpack what some of that right bits is. So going back to in terms of a lot of companies obviously will let their people go first. They see the big cost, let's go. Where are you what are the edges? Where are you looking differently in terms of saving money and the company getting behind? Look, we appreciate, we can all sacrifice there if we can all stay together and stay in work. What are some of your strategies?
Different. We're going to use the word processes. Mm-hmm. I'm sure one of
Love a process.
Well, some people in my business will roll their eyes, but I think when you are independent and you're unencumbered by red tape, processes, reporting to a higher body, you can basically do what you want. If something doesn't feel right, you change it. Might not be perfect, but you've got the freedom to be able to do that. So all the leaders in the business, if something doesn't feel right, they change it and they optimize it and they change it until it works. It's hard work. It is hard work. If it was easy, anybody could do it. But it is rewarding for the people who are making things, assets, plans, adverts, creative. There's a young lady in our office who, she does have a side hustle, but she uses it. She does our catering for us sometimes. If we have big clients coming in for big meetings, she'll do the catering in the morning because she absolutely loves it. It's like a great idea-led initiative that she just brings to the company. Yeah. And there are pockets of that within the business that we massively champion.
Sounds like it's a lot of looking at that kind of 1% strategy. I can't remember the psychologist who joined, it was a cycling team, and just looked at all those 1% improvements. It's even something like that, using your team and how you can work differently. It doesn't need to be a big drastic thing, but lots of little 1% tweaks and changes and giving some autonomy, you can drive and keep up with pace. And you use the word motivation a lot. And it sounds like, am I correct in saying that as a leadership team, you are motivated to protect your people first versus seeing that as an easy way out? So I'm guessing all the leaders are in on this to be like, right, where can we help? Where can we cut? Where can we be more savvy? Where can we be more efficient? So the last place we need to look is letting anyone go.
We're all new into our roles. Everybody in the leadership team at Neverland has never done the role they're doing now before. And that is a blessing and a curse, because then there's no preconceived way of doing things. Every leader in the business makes the role their own. And I guess when you're not having to follow a set path, it's quite rewarding for people, and it's motivating because it's then on you to get it right. And I think the motivation that runs through all of it, we want to be a fantastic business where the people are as happy as the clients are and the work we're making is fantastic. And there's nothing more complicated. We work in a creative business. We get to be creative all day long, and we get to partner with clients that want to share that vision and help their businesses grow. It's good to see that creativity is being perceived as a growth engine again, because it wasn't for so long.
And I just like the way it doesn't need to be complicated, but it is incredible. So you've done networks, I've done networks, to how complicated a network can make it.
Yeah.
And, bureaucratize and process everything that it becomes exhausting.
I've had, if I'm honest, I've had the best of both. So when I started in advertising, I was at TBWA, and I was on this team that was like, it blew my mind. I walked into work every day looking at all of these, leaders of the business, and they're all still in the industry now, and they've all got phenomenal jobs. And it was just like, this is incredible. I got to play PlayStation all day, and I got to do stuff with Adidas football and go on shoots, and it was exciting. And it was, I met my wife there. We were like a family, and we still are. Still speak to all of them pretty much. And then I went to another network, equally as brilliant as well, and Rainey Kelly, which is no longer, it's merged into something else, but that was incredible. So I can see the networks that can get it right, but they all have that sort of touch of independence about them. I never felt like there was something above where I worked.
Dictating these
I knew that
gods-given
there was a
decisions that you can't see
CEO
them.
and Tim Lindsay, and he was a brilliant CEO, but I knew he made decisions on our behalf, and he sorted that for us, and he had a great leadership team around him, and it all worked.
Sounds like there's a lot of trust.
A lot of trust, and they put a lot of effort into the culture, and where everyone worked hard. And it was, I mean, we joked about it the other week. You sort of got in at 7 and you didn't leave till 10, and then maybe you didn't go home and you went, out. People don't necessarily want that these days. They want different benefits and different, I guess perks is a good word for it. And you just have to find and listen to what people want. So there's a lot of energy that goes into, we're quite a competitive business, I would say. So everybody in the business has this sort of ruthless competitive streak within them. So we do a lot of like sports. We have a sports day once a year, and we'll do every month. Ash, who's our operations manager, she organises, I don't know, we'll go and do a CrossFit class, and we'll do a cycling class or boxing or rock climbing. So it's quite good for it not always to be let's all go to the pub and get really drunk, because quite a lot of people don't want that anymore.
No, it's not. Like, I'm even trying to let go of alcohol myself. It's much harder than I thought. I'm trying. Something that you shared with me in terms of what you believe has really helped you become a CEO and your career as well is your emotional intelligence. Can you talk to me a bit more about that and how you lean into that?
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I wasn't the smartest at school. I think I scraped through GCSE and A levels, and even at my degree, I got a fairly average. I was lucky enough to go to university, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I maximised my potential, let's say. But you kind of know when you start in an agency and your work experience, you kind of realise that knowing everybody is really important, because at some point you're going to need a favour from, I don't know, Kieran in the edit suite. You're going to need him to cut you a reel at 9 o'clock at night. And if you don't know that person, he's not going to help. Or, one of the fab, going back to TBWA days, that this team of like phenomenal PAs that basically ran the business, if you didn't know them and you weren't courteous and polite and kind and respectful, they weren't going to help you. So I just learned really early on that the only thing that I've really got is I can get on with people. And I don't really think there's been much more to what I do than that. Embarrassingly, everyone has this huge dose of imposter syndrome. Mine's the same. I'm not going to sit here and quote Mark Ritson or Byron Sharp to you, because I'm just not book smart like that.
Yeah.
But I can feel when things aren't right, and I can feel when things are right, and you sort of go with that. Probably painting myself to be a ridiculous human being that has no knowledge of anything, but other than 20 years in the industry of doing what we do.
No, it's actually a joy to listen to you. And it's interesting that you immediately went into, if I flip back into kind of then self-sabotage, or that can't be enough. And I think, part of the reason I invited you on the show is, you're in the campaign, top places to work 2 years in a row, being a new CEO. It really demonstrates how important having emotionally intelligent leaders are. And this may sound a bit strange to say, but it is the new breed of leadership. That's what we need in the world today. And I think for you to then to be able to embrace that, to go, actually, that's a really confident thing that's needed, I think it'd be very empowering for you and the people, because I think any future leaders coming up to be led by you, led by someone who's emotionally intelligent, I think their career is going to fly. And hopefully we can start minimizing this imposter syndrome and really champion people who can feel, who can read a room, can connect with people, can empathize, can listen. Because ultimately we walk around as human beings with a billboard on our head saying, please make me feel seen, heard, and that I matter. And someone who's got natural emotional intelligence will be doing that every day naturally. I remember when we did our pre-call, you said how important it is that you know people. And I challenged you saying, okay, well, when you scale, when do you think that would stop? Do you remember your answer?
I said it shouldn't, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it should. We're only 60 people. It's very easy to know everybody. Like first name terms, I probably know most people. I'm not sure whether they'd want me to, but I know most people's partners' names and their kids' names and their family status and whether they're about to get married or, how far in their pregnancy journey they are. You can do that. It's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of work. It's just being around people and listening. I think that's a big thing for me is just listening. So many people don't know how to,
or
they
don't care enough to.
they
Or
wait.
it's not natural.
When you go to a meeting, they're waiting to talk as opposed to listening to what's being said. And that's going back to the CEO and being 9 months in. There's so many opinions and points of view because you're not in the weeds of everything, because you can't be, and the team around you are. So you have to very quickly listen to the most rounded point of view as you can, and then together with the group make a decision to go forward. But you have to really listen to what's being said and not listen to a particular departmental view or a individual's view on something. You have to look at it in the round from a company perspective with your client hat on often, to understand what the best thing for the creative work is and for the client that is basically paying you to tell their story.
There'll be a lot of people listening to this where emotional intelligence doesn't come naturally to them. So I coach a lot of leaders who are like, Joe, help me out here. I think I'm listening, but I'm being told I'm not. My team are saying I'm intimidating, but I don't see it. I do actually really care about my team, but they don't. And I know you say we're only 60 people. There's a lot of companies out there that are 40, 50 people, and maybe the person at the top doesn't know all their names or doesn't know as much as you do. Anyone listening that finds it difficult to lean into that emotional intelligence, what advice would you give? How do you prioritize the time to do this? Because I know it's natural for you, so it's sometimes hard to share what's come so naturally to you. But what do you think you're doing in that moment that can help them realize that they could be doing during their day?
Yeah, self-awareness is probably really important. Like if you don't know what your own strengths are, you don't know what your own abilities are, it's very easy to not be able to transfer those across to somebody else. There was a I know I joked about not reading books. There was a fantastic book that I read. There's a book on emotional intelligence by Daniel Goleman, and it's fantastic, but it's like quite a self-reflective book. I remember reading it and thinking, God, I don't do that. Maybe I should do that. But it helps point out what your strengths are and then how you can use those to help influence other people positively. Genuinely though, listening is so important. I know I've said it a couple of times, but if you're not listening, how are you ever going to hear what people are asking? And it's not just about doing what you think is right, because as a company, you kind of have to have the company as a whole in the back of your mind when you make all these decisions.
Something that's come into a word that just came to my head was control. So myself included at times, how CEOs you get to leader, there's a sense of you need to have control and to also stop yourself being exposed and stuff like got control everything. How have you, because to sit back and listen, because a lot of people can't listen because they're needing to have control. And you just said like, it doesn't need to be your decision all the time or your thought. You can listen to what other people say. Do you think you've ever had a control thing? How important is control to you?
People who have worked with me would probably say I'm a control freak.
Okay.
Because growing up, I was just always wanted to be on top of my stuff. Didn't want to disappoint anybody or let anybody down, because I had a particular, chink in the chain that I was in, that if I did it really well, then I knew everybody else would be able to do theirs really well. So as an account person, your job is basically supporting the creatives with all the ammunition they could possibly need to make the best decision they can. So you kind of you want to be all over the detail and you want to be across everything, and then you'll encourage people to work with you. So you're slightly more involved in their specialisms, but that's no good if you're running a business with 20 plus clients and you haven't got the time to be in that detail. So you have to trust the other people around you that they are doing their job to the very best of their ability, which I'm lucky that it's definitely a incredibly strong contingent of very effective, brilliant leaders in the business that know exactly how to get things done. So they either push me back, which is also fine, or they'll bring me in when they need to bounce stuff around. Amy in particular, we're like, you kind of need like a partner in crime. And I think we have this great relationship where, if I ever say something that doesn't sound right, she'll pull me up on it, and she'll be like, Josh, that's not the right thing, or you've misinterpreted this, and you kind of need that. It's like my wife Kate at home, if ever I say something out of line, she'll do the same, and you need those people around you. Otherwise,
You're crazy.
and make silly mistakes.
Yeah. It sounds like what is quite interesting listening to you is you don't have this need to be right, which I think if you've got control and the need to be right, it kind of equals quite a bit of disaster. But it sounds like you're quite happy at going like, I like to have control. It feels good, but I can give it away. And it sounds like the talent around you is really important, that you've got trusted talent around you. Sounds like you've built psychological safety in your culture, that you can be challenged as well. But it doesn't feel like you need to be right all the time, which I think maybe helps manage that.
Like I said, half the time I'm not really sure why I'm in the position that I'm in. So you learn more from being wrong often than you do from being right. You know, all the brilliant lessons that I've had through the career, you often learn the most from the bad experiences you've had. As much as that's awful to say, it helps define what sort of leader and person you want to be by thinking, well, I definitely don't want to do that, or I don't want to be that sort of leader, or I don't want to have that attitude and that sort of thing. It forms who you are just as much as, you know, knowing what you want.
I just think it just sounds brilliant. And the thing that I'm curious about is, you said you've got 2 founders still in the business.
Yes.
How's that dynamic? I'm asking from a place of speaking to lots of MDs or CEOs who are still working in a founder-led business. They're still quite hands-on. And most of the time I hear it's actually very challenging because the founders won't let go or really give that autonomy and trust. How have you managed to get a dynamic that's working for you?
It's difficult because it's their business. It's their name above the door. You know, it's like Peggy Mitchell, it's my pub. So I think there's just this incredible level of trust that they put in me to put me in the position. And I couldn't do the job that I do without them. You know, at the moment, John is one of the founders, John Forsyth, is playing a phenomenal role in the business as our creative lead. And Simon's got this brilliant brand strategy pedigree, and as a business they are 2 services that we sell, and they are the best practitioners of that. So getting them working within the business is critical for the business. You know, when we pitch and they meet John and Simon, those clients want John and Simon part of their business because they're incredibly experienced, really successful, and very good at what they do. So we found a way that, you know, that kind of like siblings that bicker and argue, but there's no animosity. It's sometimes you have a different opinion to somebody else, and that's okay, and you work it through. And sometimes you'll go one way and it won't be right, so you'll have to come back and go again. There's lots of talking, and I get from them as well lots of listening. They're really good at it, and I am lucky to have them in the business. It's not a traditional CEO role, probably. You know, I'm not a CEO of a network agency that reports into a group CEO that reports into a global CEO. It's not. I mean, I'm not that, which I'm grateful for. But I learn a lot from them. I like to think they learn from me as well. But it works, and I'm under no illusion that it might not have worked. And I think we all work really hard at the relationship to make it effective.
And I think that's the key thing. The relationship takes work. You can't just think it's just going to be there. It takes effort, like a marriage or anything. That work's got to go in. And it just sounds also like egos are managed.
Yeah.
And it's like you're all on your own page. You can manage your own egos and help manage each other's.
I think we all, and with Amy and Lola and Theo and Tom and the rest of these, everybody wants the same thing for the business.
Yes.
So when everybody is motivated in the same direction, the only things you're going to argue really about how you get there, not the direction you're going in, and that helps a lot.
And that was quite fun as when we spoke as well. We were saying with your leadership team obviously being quite new, you know, like how you've got the culture where you are. You said, oh yeah, we're all aligned. And I said, okay, test.
Yeah.
Go and ask all of them like what they think the direction of the company is. So what happened when you did that?
We did. Everyone's motivation is the same.
Yeah.
When you're in a leadership position, it is difficult sometimes to forget the lane that you arrived in that position within. So when I was head of client service, I was in the leadership team, but my discipline was, you know, account management and client service. So you always have that hat on. So everyone's answer was the same ultimately, but it came from the lanes that they're in. But we are all doing that thing. I mean, as the football unfolds on the TV, we're doing the thing where we're all playing for country, not club. And I think a leadership team really comes together when they've made that decision to do that, when the name on the front of the shirt is more important than the name on the back. And I think I see it all the time. And people will fall back into, I still do it occasionally, and I'll need somebody to clip me around the ear and push me back in the right direction. But it is an exciting time where we're going in the same direction together. And, you're a phone call away from somebody just to chat it through and talk into the evening if you need to, just to make sure you've got something right.
Were you nervous at all when you did the test that you might not be on the same page?
After I said what I said to you as well, I was like, oh God, what if nobody says the same thing? What if we're totally different? Everyone's doing...
But I think it's a good test to do. It's like anyone listening or watching, it's like actually just go around the table and just check when you say, actually, what's our vision? What's our mission? What are our core values? How are we living them out? Just test that actually there is alignment, because so many of the times people have made it mean something different, or it's got a bit lost, or unfortunately, it's like Patrick Lencioni works, you become too much of a working group and everyone's too much in their lane, and they forget that there's other lanes in the business and they're only focused on theirs. So I love your thing of playing for country, not just for your club. I think it's so important. I really want that to land for people, because I think it is interesting that you've got people in the leadership team doing new roles. And what's so exciting with that is you can shape it to be what you want it to be. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, to please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a small action that makes a big difference. You'll be the first to know when new episodes drop, and your support helps us create meaningful content for leaders like you. I'd also love to hear from you, so if you have any thoughts, questions or ideas, pop them into the comments. And if you're curious about how my leadership coaching or training could support you or your team, just drop me a DM and we'll set up a call. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the episode. I'm just curious, before I go on to the last question, you said that it was a blessing and a curse. What are the challenges, though, that you all new leaders?
That's a really good question. I think there isn't a path to follow. I mean, I particularly found that I was promoted to be the CEO in a business that didn't have a CEO, and therefore there was no prerequisite of what the CEO should do. So you spend a good chunk of your time working at the very beginning, working out where you need to spend your time. And for me, I was fortunate in that I arrived at that answer quite quick. It was the work, like the creative. That's what we are in the business for, is the creative. So a lot of my time needs to go there. Our clients are really important to me personally. Very lucky to have a phenomenal group of clients who I hang out with as much socially as I do professionally. I spend as much time with all of them as I do with my wife. And then the people within the business. And then they're your three cornerstones, and they've all got other bits around them that are attached and critical. But when you've got that clarity of that's where you're going to spend your time, it's easy. But that's not the same for everybody, because the new roles that we are making for people, they have a new era feel about them. So, Amy is our Chief Creative Production Officer. She is, trailblazing new ways to do things, tackling AI and bringing in new disciplines and bringing the whole, and I say the team, but I mean the agency's skill sets up to be able to be competent in those areas. So the curse of it is everything is new, as much as that's a blessing. I know that's a backward answer to your question, but I hope it made sense.
So you're figuring it out as you go along. So I suppose it's slightly the cusp. You might make more mistakes, but as we said earlier, you're just going to keep learning and growing for those mistakes versus the fear of those mistakes holding you back.
Yeah.
And there is a chance, because it's also new, you won't know the mistakes you're about to make until you make them. You've actually got a bit more freedom to experiment. I just read Anne Law's book, Tiny Experiments, and it sounds like your team have got that permission to experiment and have a go, because as you said, there's no previous history where people are trying to keep the status quo or saying, well, I've done this before, or this is how it works. Well, actually, I think the world we're in now, we need to be more experimental, because I think the past isn't necessarily what is going to work for the future.
I couldn't agree more. And I would hope that everybody in the business understands and feels that it's all about asking for forgiveness, not permission. And if you've got an idea that you want to do, go and do it. Obviously everyone's got their jobs to do within the company. As long as you do those, you get all the freedom that you want to try new things. If you think there's a better way of doing it, go for it. And
I loved when we were talking before the interview, you said that's pretty much your mantra, and it has been from school and university.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that if that comes through in your leadership, that is so embedded in you that it actually just naturally becomes part of your culture where people feel they can do it. So I think a lot of people say that, but they don't put it into practice. But you've lived your life by that quite a lot, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, perhaps while I was at school, I probably should have asked for permission more than I did. It's the worst somebody's going to say is you were wrong to do that and you shouldn't do it again. But at least you know and you've understood if there's a benefit in doing it.
Yeah.
Versus the slightly risk-averse nature of people who are having to grant you permission for stuff. More often than not, if it's something new, they'll say no because there's no money for it, or there's no time for it, or they don't know how it's to be done. It's very easy to say no. Everyone always jokes about account people being like yes people. It's very easy to say. It's not. It's really easy to say no to stuff.
Yeah.
The difficult thing is when, as a leader, is saying yes to the things that are going to massively help people.
And then that for me is courageous leadership. Especially saying yes when it's never been done before.
Yeah.
Let's give it a go. So I'd love to know, if you imagined your future self, what would your future self, what advice would they give you today?
They'd probably say slow down.
Okay.
I think I was always, I see it in a lot of the guys at the office, the team. Everyone's hungry for what's next and what's coming, and they want to be promoted and they want this level and they want that level. Looking back now, I've been doing what I do for, I think it's 18 years. Most of the stuff that I learned in year one, I still do now. You never let go of that. You're always going to be the account executive. Like even as a CEO of a 60-person business, on pitch day, I'll still be the one doing the tech to make the tech work. Because
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Really
And
nice.
Hoover. I like hoovering on pitch day, yeah. A clean house says a lot, I think.
I think it says a lot. But to slow down. And with that advice, do you think that's something you could actually implement?
I think we do a really good job of helping people understand what their jobs are. So I think everybody in the business has a job description, and everybody knows that when they are already doing the job description of the one that's next in line, that's the right time for them to be stepping into that role, not when they've mastered the role that they're in. I think there's been two occasions in my career where I pushed to get promoted. There's nothing worse than getting promoted because you feel like you've asked for it as opposed to deserving it. But I was in one in particular, I was caught out, and it was, knocked me back, I'd say 6 months. Confidence gets knocked. You question everything. You are slower when you should have been faster. And you looking back, going slower in those moments probably would have been better for me, I think.
And I just like that, just to let you know, that when I speak to teams, the one thing they all ask for is more clarity, especially clarity in roles and job descriptions. So the fact that you've got that in place and people are very, very clear what they need to do to get to the next role. I think anyone listening, please take that on board, because so many people just don't have the clarity they need for how they can progress.
Yeah. And the other thing that I don't think I really understood when I was more junior was that those titles that everybody covets, whilst they are an incredible pride badge to wear, on your email or on your LinkedIn or whatever, that is also the agency's way of protecting you from certain things. It's not, oh, you're junior and therefore you're only an account manager. It's like, as an account manager, there are things that you shouldn't be exposed to, or behaviors that you haven't necessarily built up enough thick skin, for want of a better word, to have to deal with. And I think as you go through a business, the more senior you are, you get a lot of shit, really. And I think it's the experience that builds you up over the years that allows you to handle those moments better.
Yeah, that's a really lovely reframe to look at it. It's to protect you, to help you grow. That's lovely. Is there anything we've missed, anything you'd like to reinforce or share before we close?
No, I'm grateful for being invited on, because it's nice that alongside all the phenomenal leaders that you've had on this business, you're happy to speak to somebody who's sort of finding their feet in their role as they go. But no, I've really enjoyed it. So thank you.
No, thank you for coming on. I reached out the minute I saw you had the award, because I think leading with emotional intelligence is the future. So the more leaders that can grasp that, embrace that, not feel it's that's all I've got, because it really is. I really hope from this that you see how valuable it is, that natural ability or natural superpower of emotional intelligence, because it is the future. So thank you for coming on, and thank you to everyone listening, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. If you've been enjoying the Courageous Leaders podcast, We'd love it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us keep creating quality content and reaching more leaders like you who are ready to grow and make a real impact. We fund this podcast ourselves, so every subscription truly makes a difference and allows us to support courageous leaders like you. Thank you for being part of the journey.